Welcome back. We are now ready to continue to go to number 6, convert to an invoice. So in the last step, we learned how to close this event. We edited, changed some pricing, changed some time elements, and we closed it out. Now it's ready to become an invoice. Before we go over and simply click this in order to repress the close an invoice button, we want to go over to the invoices section. It's very important to understand that the events and invoices are a one-way street. It is very difficult to go back and undo this step. It requires a lot of very careful deletion, and we'll call it sort of a managerial type uh, action. So whenever you're ready to close out your event and make it into an invoice, you want to really be sure that it is accurate and correct. One of those things is that is required before you can do that is essentially a review from someone who is in a position to do the reviews. I myself may be that person. Another individual named Trent may also be that person, and in time, perhaps there may be others who can review as well. However, the review process is pretty simple. Once the event has been reviewed, either by you or another person, we add the initials of that person here so that it can be seen who has reviewed it and at what stage the event is in order to prepare it to go across that barrier, which is so difficult to come back from, and turning it into an invoice. So here we will go back and reopen this event in order to add the initials that are required for a review. So let's just say, for example, the individual who was working on it the first time was me. I would put my initials on it, and it would say KG. And then let's just say, for example, Mr. Coakley would come after me to review this event, and then he would add a TC. Sometimes it will require both initials. Sometimes it will only require one initial. We'll get into more details about that at another time. But some level of initials are probably needed prior to being able to turn it into an invoice. There are some times when that isn't the case, but for the purposes of this lesson, we'll say that it is. So now it has the initials. Now it is really ready to close. The event is closed out once again by turning it green, and this time we will leave it there in the closed state, and let's just assume that you arrive at this state and it already has the two initials. So if it has one initial, two initials, we'll get into those details later, but now it is truly ready to become an invoice. However, before we get to the invoices section, we want to take a trip over to the invoices module. In order to do that, we will use a different tab here, and we will modify our screen and get us over to the finances area, invoices module. And what we want to see is we want to see the receipt of that event over here. There are hundreds and hundreds of invoices here. It is very simple to lose an invoice, and you want to make sure that you understand what it is that you're doing, and you can see it coming across the line. So the event is for Mr. John Bobbington. So I will go ahead and filter all the events for Mr. John Bobbington, of which at the moment there are none here. So when I bring over an event for Mr. John Bobbington, I'll be able to see it very clearly, and I will know that I've completed the step properly. So let's go back over here, and at this time I will actually be able to check the green box, and I'll be able to hit the close and invoice button. Of course, the event is already closed because it's green, but the two are always connected. So we will hit close and invoice. As soon as we do, we will hit yes. And now the event will show here invoiced. In the event type, it will show invoiced. And now we can switch back over to the other screen. We will refresh it here. This is our invoice area. We will hit the refresh button, and we should see that the John Bobbington event shows up here. $203. All the information has basically stayed the same. And that is how you convert an event into an invoice. It begins over on the event side. You want to make sure you've got the event reviewed. Once it's ready to review, you select it and you send it on over to an invoice. And when it arrives here, you have this pre-filtered so that it's very clear that the event arrives. Once the event arrives, you can proceed on to the next step. That concludes how to convert to an invoice.